Hey guys, my name is Amiel, and when I was 22, I got my master's. I just wanted to make this video to kind of introduce myself because I'm from Kansas City, and I know a lot of people don't really expect much from KC, but there's so many opportunities. When I graduated from high school, I actually got 46 college credits that allowed me to get my bachelor's in 3 years from Rutgers University. Go Hawks! And during that time, I actually got to work in two like academia research labs. The first one was at the KU Medical Center. I worked in this lab that studied chronic pain and inflammation. It was so dope because we had these mice that were genetically modified to have this molecule called TIMP1 knocked out. So they were unable to resolve the subcutaneous abrasions that we'd cause. So we would like stress them out and scratch their tail and their hind paw, and they'd be unable to resolve it. So my project was sort of unique because I combined gastroenterology with the chronic pain and inflammation. We looked at their colon. We were like, what happens if we inflame their colon? And then we reintroduced TIMP1 to see how they regenerate. Because without TIMP1, we noticed that are unable to heal. So that was pretty cool because we found that the mice, when we reintroduced TIMP1, we could kind of reverse the effects of inflammatory bowel disease. And then I had the opportunity to work at the Stowers Institute for Medical Research in this really cool lab that studied cavefish. So this fish called Osteonyx mexicanus is so fucking unique because they have these cave morphs that have like no eyes and they have basically diabetes, but they live longer and they're healthy as hell. And this was sort of my introduction to toxicology because my project was called Drink Like a Fish, and I exposed them to alcohol. I was like, what happens? And it turns out that cavefish get alcoholic fatty liver disease at a deaccelerated rate compared to the surface fish because they have more potent antioxidants that act as protective metabolites against the free radicals and stuff that you get when you metabolize alcohol. So they're protected. After I would like work in a lab, I'd also would be teaching like eighth grade science when I was at Rutgers University. So I love KC a lot because I've had my emergency substitute teaching license since COVID. I was like teaching online and been doing it for some time now. Um, After I got my bachelor's in 3 years from Rockhurst, I actually went to the Indiana University School of Medicine, and I got my master's in translational toxicology. Some people will be like, "What the fuck is that?" And that's exactly how I was too. I ended up knowing the program director, and he was like, "Hey, you want a fee waiver?" And I was like, yeah, if I can apply to it for free and you think I might get in, sure. It turns out that I was the only person in the entire cohort, and it was a brand new master's. So I kind of had no idea what I was doing, but I was still able to graduate in a year. I started in 2022 and I finished in 2023. During that time, I got to work in two more labs. The first one was the Indiana University or the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. Um, that one was really cool because we studied diabetes and Ozempic and Wegovy. So like the same time that the South Park episode came out about like obesity, I was literally studying Ozempic. It was crazy because I got to inject these mice that were still alive with this adeno-associated Crelox virus in their brain, in the ventromedial hypothalamus to be specific, because when we injected that virus, it turned off a specific neuropeptide that we knew was really important for weight regulation and weight management. So basically, these mice got like super obese after these live surgeries that we had to do. But it was so much fun and so cool because, like, afterward, we actually got to dissect the brain and then use a microscope to count how many cells actually got our virus that we injected in the specific region that we were looking for versus how much weight that mouse gained. That was what my project was about. But for my master's, it was a non thesis based, and instead, it had like a 10-week long intensive internship. So I got to do that at the Hawaii Institute for Marine Biology in the Coral Resilience Laboratory and work on the coral reef. I had two mentors that each studied different things. One of them studied the coral itself and the trade-offs associated with bleaching, and the other one actually studied the symbionts or the algae that live inside of the tissue of the coral. And my summer was filled with doing a lot of this pulse amplitude modulation or PAM analysis. PAM is basically where they shoot a laser at the coral and then they can determine how much of that laser was absorbed and then reflected by the coral. And then we can look at how much of that ratio is either good or bad and determine the health of the coral that way. So a lot of my time was spent analyzing that kind of data. But graduation and then like at post graduation has been so rough for me, like finding a job, because people are like, okay, you're an early graduate or early career professional, that's great, where's your like 10, 15 years of experience for you to get this job that you're applying for? Or there's like 30 other candidates that we'd rather go with, and because they had keywords in their resume, we're going to choose them over you. It's crazy because I've done so much work in academia labs, and then when I'm applying to go to industry, they're like, none of your experience actually translates over. And I'm like, every single person told me that it would, though. And you're basically saying that all that time spent was for nothing. Because now, like, looking into getting an industry job has been so difficult. This is my puppy, by the way. Say what's up, Smokey. And it's been hard because I actually found a job through just sheer networking at local events. I was able to culminate this class at Metropolitan Community College in the biotechnology industry that allowed me to teach students that actually looked like me to get these five micro credentials in science and STEM that were like around micropipetting, numeracy, documentation, and SOP, and lab safety hazards. And we were able to put those on the resume and then hold like a networking event so they could like immediately get hired right after our class. It was just an 8 week class that was again grant funded. So every single thing that you could think of was covered, not just the tuition and the books, but all of the materials. We actually had gas cards for students. We had this weird program too where if one of my students had like a freaking kid, we'd pay you to babysit it because we wanted to remove every single barrier possible so we could have a really low attrition and high attendance. And it was super successful. The only real bad thing that happened was one of my students actually had like a seizure during class. And I had never experienced that before. Like, I've been teaching since 2020 as a sub and then like a long term eighth grade teacher. I've never had a student who actually turned out to be pregnant, by the way, end up seizing in class. It was insane and scary. And luckily she was okay and her kid was too. But class was super successful. And then after my second cohort, I got my grant cut. Hashtag thanks Trump. Now that was like at the middle of July. So I don't have insurance and I don't have a job and I'm about to lose my car. I have no idea what to do because I actually like change my resume to every single job that I apply for to be specific, and I haven't been able to land a single bite, not even like a nibble. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about my background. And if you guys have any advice on like the job search, or if you guys are going through something similar where you have a lot of experience or education, training, and you're unable to find work, let me hear your story too.